Hey, aren't you Nazuna from Call of the Night? You're a sick, perverted freak, you know that, you sick fuck, pedophile.
It was a night like any other, the night before Halloween, when I was watching Blue and happened to receive a package. Within it was a VHS tape labeled Nonce. At first, I thought it was calling me a nonce.
Yo, what?
But I hadn't touched any kids as far as I was aware, so I looked deeper. I played the VHS and discovered a message from my friend Lemoné. A few years ago, I made a review of a new anime I watched called Call of the Night, a story following the life of teenager Koyamori who's had enough of the day-to-day and decided to go out late at night for a change of pace. He doesn't do anything particularly interesting, just walking around taking in the splendor of the night, but then he meets a vampire named Nazuna. From here on out, it's a pretty good anime with an interesting story, an intriguing antagonist, amazing animation, and even better direction. But there's one glaring issue. Nazuna, this vampire who Ko has become friends with, is a raging nonce. As I said earlier, Ko is 14 years old, and Nazuna is anywhere from 40 onwards. Yes, she's a vampire, so she doesn't age the same, at least physically, but she's still been alive all this time, gaining experience, growing mentally, doing all the things a person does as they grow older, like making friends, drinking, falling in love, and even starting her own business. These are all milestones in a person's life that signify the transition into adulthood. Realistically, there is no possible way that she's still in the same stage of life as Ko, the 14-year-old who's still in school and hadn't even gone outside at night until very recently. The age gap isn't where the issues end though. There's still so many more problems that crop up when you really analyze the timeline of this relationship. So, I'm asking you, detective, to take a look at this woman's behavior and try to put her away for good. I know your father worked this case, but they got him, so I'm giving you this chance to get your revenge. Vampires. Not just any vampires. Pedophile vampires. Vampedophiles. More specifically, one vampire grooming a mentally lost 14-year-old boy with the goal of turning him into her offspring. Something has to be done about this. But the police can't deal with vampires. It's not in their budget. So I, Detective Lemoné, will defeat Nazuna. Before we get into everything, I just want to mention in case any pedophile defenders pop up. I know that pedophilia is the erotic preference for prepubescent children, and that Ko is pubescent, so Nazuna doesn't fit the bill. She's a hebophile, attracted to pubescent children instead, but I really don't give a fuck. And just for more clarification, nonce has no age range, it's just people chatting up youngins that they ought not to be chatting to. Now, we start this anime off seeing Ko as a troubled youth who feels like he just doesn't fit in, partly because he doesn't understand what it means to really like someone, and partly because he can't sleep at night. So he ventures off into the night on his own for the first time, and then runs into the predator, Nazuna Nanakusa. Already, we're off to a bad start. A 40-something-year-old approaching a 14-year-old in the dead of the night, calling him boy so as to enforce the age gap, catching him doing something he's not supposed to be doing. She has all the power in this situation. He's helpless, scared that if he goes against her, she'll tell either his parents or the police that he was buying some beer. Now, these next few points were all made by my predecessor, Detective Lemoné Sr., may God rest his soul, so I'll just flash back to him in 2 times speed.
The first piece of evidence to this theory occurs in the very first episode, when Nazuna puts Ko into a life-threatening situation and then saves him. By doing this, Nazuna establishes a hierarchy of power over Ko, showing him that he's at her mercy and he should stay with her if he wants to remain safe. The next piece of evidence, and particularly the most solid, is when Akira asks Ko why he stopped going to school. When Akira asks Ko why he stopped going to school, Nazuna instantly gets defensive, telling Ko that school is useless and that he doesn't need it. Ko then explains his reasoning for not going to school, and Akira hits him with a perfectly logical counterpoint, plus a bit of friendship in order to get him back on the right track. So what does Nazuna do? Knowing that Ko may be considering leaving her, she first reminds him that she's a vampire. Second, questions Akira's intentions and insinuates that she may not be a real friend. And then third, she leaves. pouted like a child. This is textbook manipulation, my friend. She gaslit him and tried to distance him from his friend, who was telling the truth. She even hits him with the think for yourself line comboed with some insults. Then, when she finally stops ignoring him, what does she do? Apologize for being a dickhead? No, of course not. She kisses him, further reinforcing their relationship and tricking Cohen to thinking he has a reason to stay. Then finally, this one are kind of irrefutable, I would say. Just the fact that she told him she's a vampire, therefore essentially sentencing him to an execution if he doesn't fall in love with her within a year, should be enough evidence that she's not a very good person. Like, holy cannoli.
Thanks, Dad. As you just heard, Nazuna is a textbook groomer. The way she utilizes the gap in power and the gap in maturity to lure Ko into this freaky-ass relationship is something EDP could only dream of. She found a 14-year-old going through a period of uncertainty and in the span of one night, locked him into a death contract, giving him no choice but to fall in love with her. Now, all that's nothing new. We've been knowing this. But what we didn't been knowing is the events that transpired in the second season. A second season that I was very excited for. But there were two things that stopped me from fully enjoying this season, or three if you include the nonsense, but two that are unique to this season, and they both stem from the detective, Anko. Anko's introduction and entire character throughout season 1 was super cool. As you would expect, I love detective characters, and she embodied the exotic swagger of detectives so well. Probably the best I've seen in anime recently, and I was really excited when I realized that season 2 would give her much more shine. But that was before I knew that they would butcher this character that I loved so much. Everything was going well. Her backstory with Nazuna was engaging, and it did a great job of establishing her motive. All of her actions had significance now, as did the lighter we always see her carrying around. But then everything went awry. She loses, as expected, and it's revealed that she never really had a well thought out plan at all, and her hatred for vampires was relatively shallow. This was all just a big plot for her to kill herself, which she also didn't really want to do. So this whole thing was just an elaborate suicide plan for a suicide plan that she didn't particularly want to happen. Don't get me wrong, I understand that she's supposed to demonstrate the dangers of being consumed by something and then just fully buying into the sunk cost fallacy and the dangers of depression and untreated trauma. That's all well and great, but she could have been that and still had a real plan. And it also kind of seems like she gets over it pretty quick. She cuts her hair and she's like, now I'm on to living life normally. But that's just the first thing, something that I generally didn't like about the conclusion of the arc. But then she's a nonce too. She keeps asking Ko and Nazuna to do sexual things. She keeps touching him. She tries to cuddle with him. She's a fucking creep. This cool ass detective is a weirdo. Fuck, man. This is anti-detective propaganda. But this leads us into the new information granted to us through this fuck-ass season. Anko is a victim of Nazuna's grooming. She was in high school when she met Nazuna, who should have been around 30 at the time they met, and her mental state is just too volatile to truly understand what she's getting into with any relationship. In season 2, episode 8, at 10 minutes and 30 seconds, Anko mentally breaks down, and what does Nazuna do? She uses this chance to ask Anko if she can turn her into a vampire, and tells her to leave everything behind and fall in love with her. Nazuna took this young girl who was troubled by the turmoil within her family and instantly started grooming her. Are you noticing a pattern here? First, she tries to groom Anko, a teenager stuck awake at night whose parents don't really care about her, unsure of her place in the world. Then, she tries to groom Ko, a teenager stuck awake at night whose parents don't really care about him, unsure of his place in the world. Both of these people are in tumultuous times in their life, and she showed up at just the right moment to take advantage of their wavering mind. And she uses the same tactics in both cases. She finds two people already isolated from their support network, and makes them dependent on her by enforcing the rule that if they don't fall in love with her in 1 year, they're gonna have to die, regardless of if they know of that rule at the start or not. She didn't get that far with Anko because of what happened to her parents, but she's literally going through the steps with Ko as we watch the series progress. She targeted him, finding a clearly lost boy who was awake late at night. She gained trust and built a special relationship with him, one between vampire and human. She isolated him, or at least did her best to isolate him. She was trying to push his friends away, as we saw, and was quite frankly very upset when Akira stayed in his life. She's working through desensitizing him to sexual contact and has been since they first met. And she's doing a very good job of maintaining control on him through the threat of the execution that will take place if they don't fall in love within a year. Anyways, I was hoping Anko just wanted to stop these vampires from touching up on the youth, but no, she wants to touch up on the youth too. But that is nothing new in the world of grooming. You see, it's widely believed amongst experts that victims of childhood sexual abuse who don't properly address their trauma, which we know Anko has not done in the last 10 years, are at a higher risk of becoming sexual abusers themselves. This explains why Anko was acting in such a manner with Ko. Unfortunately, she could not escape the dastardly claws of the predator, Nazuna. But I'm different. I don't want to touch up on the youth, nor do I want to kill myself, so I am going to put a stop to Nazuna's dastardly reign of noncery. I found all the evidence I needed and set my plan in motion to find her at a discreet location, where I will be exposing her for all her crimes and putting a stop to her reign of noncery once and for all.
There she is. The vamp pedophile, Nazuna Nanakusa. And today's the day I get her. Hey, aren't you Nazuna from Call of the Night?
No.
I think you are. You're here to meet a 14-year-old boy, aren't you?
No.
Yeah, you are. You sick freak. Is this not you kissing a little boy?
No.
I know that's you kissing a little boy right there. You touch little boys. You're a sick, perverted fucker, and you're going to prison. You're a sick, perverted freak, you know that, you sick fuck, pedophile. Oh. Where did she go? She's a sick freak, you know. That fucking nonce. That's what you get. You disgusting kid-touching freak. I didn't even record. I kicked her. You guys couldn't see it, but I kicked the shit out of her.
There we go, guys. Another disgusting nonce dealt with, just in a day's work for Detective Lemoné. I'll see y'all in the next one. Adeuces.